Welcome everyone to a new tutorial. As you can tell, this is going to be a pretty big project today. This took me about 8 hours to paint, and it may take you a little longer if you haven't had as much practice as I have. But let's get started and you can have some fun. Okay, we're going to start with a 12 by 12 canvas today, and I painted it with black satin. I still like this Martha Stewart because it gives me a one coat coverage. I'll be using Mark's Mandala's 12-piece tool set today, and I'll be having a link for that in the comments. And then I'll be using little numbers so you can see which size tool I'm using. So first of all, we're going to use a General's charcoal white pencil to draw a 10-inch circle on this canvas. Now I just happen to have this bowl that's about 10 inches across, and so I use it all the time. You could also use a compass or an embroidery hoop, anything that's 10 inches to get you a circle here. And I'm just measuring 1 inch on all sides to make sure that I am centered before I trace the outside with the pencil. And it will be a little bit hard to see here just because of the angle of the overhead light that I'm using, but you'll be able to see it as we're using it. Next, I'm making guidelines going from corner to corner on the canvas. And then once we have that on there, I'm going to measure 6 inches across on each of the 4 edges and make a little mark at the 6 inches. Do that all the way around. And don't worry about these guidelines. You can remove these later with the same black paint that you used to paint the background. So now I'm just going to connect those lines, and that will give us the grid for the mandala design. If I tilt it there, you can see it a little better. So I'm starting with just 4 colors today, and I'll be mixing other colors as we go. This just helps me keep them from drying out as we're working, because like I said, this project takes several hours. So I'm starting out with 4 shades of this green, orange, and yellow. And I'm starting with this large tool in the middle, and my yellow paint was a little bit peaked, so I just used another tool to swirl it around and flatten it. And then of course I wipe off my tools on a piece of wet paper towel. So now that I have the center dot, I'm going to be placing a small yellow dot on each of the guidelines. And then, let's see, we've got on each of the guidelines there, and then I'll be filling in the space with another yellow dot. And just make sure that your paint is thick enough that the dots don't pool out and touch each other. You could practice on a piece of paper first before you get going on your canvas to make sure your paint is the right consistency. So now I'm going to be mixing a little bit of the yellow and the lime green to create this sort of a light lime green color to make the next row of dots with a little bit larger size tool. And I'm offsetting these dots. That just means that they're going in between the dots on the previous row. And just adjust those as you need to make sure that they're all pretty much the same size. Now I'm going to add a little bit of this bright green shade to darken up the paint I just used to make the next row. A little bit bigger tool. I'm going to snug them right in there, making sure that they're not touching the dots in the previous row. And it's okay if you're leaving a little space on this one because we're going to be putting in a smaller dot there. And getting those all the right size. Now I'm using a smaller tool to add bright green dots. This is a real leafy green, almost a Kelly green. Putting those in there. And then I'm going to use a toothpick just to pull those toward the center into a teardrop shape. This kind of makes it look more botanical or more floral to get that shape in there. So now I'm going back to that lime green color again, the lightest shade, and I'm going to put those on the guidelines. And then adding a little bit more of that bright lime green in my little containers. Those are containers that I have with lids, and I just use them on lots of different projects. So now I'm going to add 2 dots on either side of the guidelines. End up looking like Mickey Mouse ears. And then we're going to add a yellow dot to the end of that row. And again, my yellow paint was a little bit too thick, so I just swirled it down. I always make my yellow paint a little thicker than I need to, and I add a lot of golden fluid Hansa yellow to it, just because gold craft acrylics, the yellow and the orange ones, tend to sort of get opaque on the edges when they dry, especially yellows. Something about yellows, so I always add the golden fluid acrylic to it to boost the pigment saturation. Anyway, now we are putting same size dots around that large yellow dot. Trying to make those all the same. And then I'm going to mix in some of the bright orange to the yellow to this mango color. I eat a lot of mangoes for breakfast when I am on Kauai with my family. I go down to the farmer's market every morning and get mangoes. So you're carefully going to snug these in between those 2 rows. And if your paint is a little thinner than mine, it might pull out a little bit. So just kind of judge if you can really get that in there without it pulling out into the next rows. So now we're going to stay with that mango color and add a smaller dot to the end of that. Again, in between the rows. And then adding a bright orange dot to that. And you want this to line up in a straight row if you can. You won't have a guideline there to help you, so it's just sort of line of sight. You want it to line up with the 2 other dots. And for me, it's easiest if I look across the canvas to line those up. You can see how I'm kind of balancing my hand there so I don't set my wrist into the wet paint. So now we're going to mix up some cobalt blue paint. I'm doing a combination of Martha Stewart and again the golden fluid acrylics, which I will list in the comments. Adding a little bit of pouring medium because that Martha Stewart was really thick, and just 1 drop of white. And I want this to be a really, really vibrant cobalt blue. There's a flower on the islands called blue ginger, and it really is this color. Sometimes it's got a little bit more purple to it, but the ones that I've seen on Kauai, it really is cobalt blue. They're absolutely stunning. So I wanted to add those in this design with this mango orange and this pineapple yellow. So now I'm going to add a few small cobalt blue dots just on either side of the mango dots. Because they're contrasting colors, they will just help each other just really be vibrant. And then we're going to add some of the bright green to finish off that mango row. Again, with these contrasting colors that are on opposite sides of the color wheel, they really do tend to make one another glow if you put them side by side or on top of each other. So now I'm going to mix up some vibrant turquoise. Usually the craft turquoise are not bright enough for me, so I add the golden fluid phthalo blue green shade in there, and it really helps boost the pigment saturation of the turquoise. And these large turquoise dots, for me, this is the color of the water on the islands, and I snorkel every day when I'm there, and it's so amazing. And the reason the water there is this color and so clear, crystal clear, is that there's very little mud or silt in the water on the islands, and there's very low nutrients in the water too, so you don't get a lot of plankton. So the water is very, very clear and just reflects the blue sky so perfectly, and oh my goodness, it's wonderful. It's like swimming and snorkeling in a swimming pool. So now that the large blue turquoise dots are on there for the color of the ocean, we're going to walk dots around those. And I coined this phrase, walking the dots, about 3 years ago when I started filming tutorials. And it's just a way to describe moving the stylus along the edge of a larger dot without reloading the paint, and then the dots get smaller and smaller and smaller. And you can walk them backwards too. So we're walking them backwards around the orange dots here. So now that that is done, I'm adding a medium shade of green to the dot on the guidelines, right next to the ocean blue. And then 2 smaller medium shade green dots on either side of that. And this is another technique I like to do in adding 2 different shades of the same color when I'm walking larger dots around a petal, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I've just added a little green to that shade to darken it up a bit, and I'm going to continue walking those dots around the ocean blue dot. And that's going to give us a nice, cool, shady color for this petal on these radials. And now I'm adding a turquoise top dots to the bright yellow dots. Again, because they're contrasting colors, they're going to make each other glow. And for some reason, it just helps the interior pineapple look of the mandala pop as well. So I'm adding orange top dots to the mango, the smaller mango. And I'm going to do these in 2 different sizes. Just a really small top dot for the larger mango one. And it's a good idea just to mix up the sizes on your top dots just to add visual variety. So now some medium green top dots. And those are going to go on that lightest shade of the lime green. And then a little bit of light turquoise on those bright orange dots. And then I'm going to be adding the bright green to the cobalt. Again, this is going to stay in the cool shade, and it's just going to help the cobalt glow a little brighter. Once these paints are dry, they're going to be a little bit darker than they are now, so that green is just going to help it glow. So now I'm going to add 2 light turquoise dots at the end of the orange dots. And again, because you don't have the guidelines on these, you'll need to kind of just do line of sight, make sure that they're fitting in between the blue petals. And I just mixed some white in with that turquoise to get that color. Then I added a little bit more white to lighten it even another shade to do the final of the 3 same size triangle dots here on the ends of this row. So I'm using the number 5 tool to place same size white dots around the perimeter of the circle that we drew at the beginning. And this can be a little tricky. This is sometimes very hard for beginners to get these circles just right. And the trick is to have thick enough paint so all of your dots stay the right size, so they don't pool out. And after you've done 5 or 6 dots, go ahead and wipe off your tool, because the paint is going to tend to build up on your tool. You want to wipe it off and start again so your dots don't start getting bigger and bigger and bigger without you noticing it. And just try and keep them in exactly the same spot. I decided to line these up just on the edge of the white circle. Sometimes I put the white circle right through the middle of the dot. And then when you get to the point where your 2 ends are going to connect, you just need to slow way down and carefully try to estimate the distance between your connecting points. because you're going to have to figure out how many dots are going to fit in that space. Can I fit 3 in there, or can I fit 2 in there? And just take your time and figure out how many you can get in there without crunching them together. And if you're not satisfied with the result, by all means wipe it off with a piece of wet paper towel and try it again. Sometimes I end up doing 2 or 3 times. If it's a little bit off, it'll bug me forever. So go ahead and take it off and try it again. It's not a big deal. So I let that dry, and now I'm adding bright orange dots on the guidelines. And then I'm going to add an orange dot in between, halfway between those. And I'm just using those triple blue dots to point to that spot. They're just pointing right to it. So I just follow that, and I know that's where that orange dot's going to go. And then do that all the way around. And these are going to be the center of flower petals that we'll be putting on the outside of this circle, almost like a flower lei. So we'll be starting these all the same with the orange center and then walking yellow dots around that center. And then I mixed up 2 shades of vibrant purple. And we're going to start with the darker shade, and we're going to start walking these dots around, but I always start out with a larger tool for the first dot, and then I use a size smaller for the next 2, and then I use a small tool or stylus just to continue walking those around to the bottom. And this purple, I decided to go with kind of the Philippine ground orchid color. It's just a beautiful, almost magenta purple. It's not a real blue purple. And then I'm skipping one of the orange dots and then going on to the next one, because we're doing a combination of blue and purple around the outside of this flower lei. But the first row will be in this beautiful magenta vibrant purple all the way around. And then I decided to mix up a little bit lighter shade, kind of the plumeria shade of the colors on there. Added just a touch of that orange to tone it down a bit. And then we're going to make the second row on the purple petals. I'm going to start with a large dot in the lightest pink, kind of that plumeria pink, and then add 2 more in a little bit smaller tool, and then use the small tool to finish walking those around in the next shade. Kind of that lovely plumeria pink, walking those around. And that will finish the purple petal, and then we're going to do that all the way around. So I'll turn the canvas and show it to you again. Start with the size 11, switch to the smaller size, I think that's a 9, and then switching to a smaller tool, and then we're going to just walk those down in the medium purple. Isn't that a cool effect? I think it looks really pretty. So you're going to do that all around, and while those dry, I'm just going to add some vibrant purple top dots to our ocean blue. Reminds me of the beautiful ground orchids that grow in the beach flowers. I mean, right on the beach, like at Shipwreck Beach on Kauai, those purple orchids grow right along the beach, and they're so pretty. So now we're going to start on the blue petals, the blue ginger. That's going to be coming around on these flowers, and we're starting with the turquoise, walking those around, and then we're going to go to the ginger, the blue ginger, cobalt blue, and we're going to do a little bit of a reverse this time. We're starting with the darker tone, and then we're going to finish it off with a little bit lighter tone. Just didn't want to go too dark on those. That's why I lightened that up. Okay, and we're going to finish the blue ones all the way around. Take a little break, see how far you've come. It's a lot of work so far. It's looking great. So now we're going to add some top dots to our lei flowers. White top dots on the flowers with the blue petals. Right on top of that orange. And then we're going to put yellow top dots on the purple petal row. That way they each will glow, but just in a little different way. Now a few turquoise top dots on our ocean blue triads. And a few light blue top dots on that final point. And I'm going back and using that beautiful plumeria pink to do top dots on the purple petals. And I mixed in some of the Martha Stewart pearl paint with those just to give them a little bit more body and a little bit more of a different glow. And they're awfully pretty when they dry. They just look like little pearls. So now we're going to be adding the leafy green in between our petals to complete the lei. So starting out with the bright green, and that tool should fit right in between those petals. And then switching to the lime green with a little bit smaller tool. And then using the C tool to do the lightest green dots. And finishing out that leafy row. So the inside is done. Congratulations. Take a little break, and then we're going to come back and do the flower corner treatments. Now these are a lot of fun. I love doing flowers with dotting tools. I did a lot for my piece mandala tutorial that you can look up, and this is just another way to do them. They're super easy and they look so pretty when they're done. So we're just going to start with a simple green dot in the corner in the bright green. And again, we're on that guideline, remember, that we drew at the beginning. And then with the same tool, we're going to add the vibrant purple. And then a small white dot. And then switching to the large tool, the number 13, we're going to put a light yellow dot. And then another small white dot, staying on the guideline. And then another vibrant purple dot with the number 11. See how they're lining up there? Super easy. Now I'm going to make a cross with the white dots like we did before with the beginning of the mandala, and then one in between, halfway in between each of those, and then fill in the spaces. Again, you might want to practice on a piece of paper to make sure that you have enough room. And now we're using the same number 11 and the purple paint to put 4 more dots. And that's the basis for our purple passion flower from the passion fruit plants. I'm going to add kind of a bluish purple in there next to the center. And then it's the lightest purple on the outside edge. And we're going to come back and finish that flower after it's dried. So now I'm going to add 2 white dots on either side of that, and then do 6 orange dots with the same tool around that. Again, 1 at the bottom, 1 at the side, and then 2 on either side. Just a simple way to do a little simple flower. And I did these bright orange. I added just a tiny bit of magenta to it because I know they're going to darken to that wonderful royal poinciana flamish red, those gorgeous trees on the islands that are just so red you can hardly believe it. Now we're going to fill in this space here with some more of the green. Just doing the same thing on both sides to give it symmetry. You don't have to fill every space, it's just your eye will kind of fill it in for you. Just a touch of the lime green to finish off that corner. Now we're going to do all 4 corners. Ta-da! That was fast. And while it's drying, I'm adding some medium green top dots to the leafy row. So those looked a little bit dark to me. And I'm going to go back and finish the purple passion flowers. So I'm adding offset white top dots. These are not in the center, these are toward the center edge of the underneath dot. And this gives the illusion of a flower petal. And you'll see this a lot in Hawaiian shirts. They have this style of flower, it's super cool. And then I'm going to add some of the vibrant purple offset on the inside edge there to complete the passion flowers. And I believe they have a green center on them too. Yeah, I did the green center dot. Okay, passion flowers done, and then we're going to go and finish the poinciana flowers with a yellow center top dot and then the vibrant purple offset inside dots. And all of a sudden they look so cute. They're such cute little flowers. Okay, the mandala is finished. Got all my flowers done, and now I'm going to go back and use the same black paint to take care of some of the splattered I had of paint and to take care of any remaining guidelines that I have. And let that dry. And it is all finished. Now these colors are going to darken about 2 shades as they dry overnight, and I'm going to show you. Bam! There they are. They just become vibrant and gorgeous. And I did a clear spray coat over this to protect it and keep the colors vibrant. And there you have it, breakfast on Kauai. This is my favorite island, the Nepali coast. Oh, I could just spend weeks there. Thank you for watching, everybody. Aloha!